What is up, everybody? It's Alex here, and welcome back. If you don't know why I'm saying welcome back, it's because you have not seen episode 1 of How to Produce a Pop Song. Go back and watch that. We cover some great things, kind of a recap. We covered inspiration, right? So you need inspiration. You need to pull a deep well of inspiration to draw from to create great music, in my opinion. And I had you make a playlist of 10 different songs from 10 different artists that you can use as like your well of inspiration. Okay, number 2, we talked about having a good template. So having something in your DAW, in your digital audio workstation, that is already set up, already routed, already has your favorite plugins, your favorite instruments, to where when inspiration hits you, you can just hop in and you can just go crazy. And so having a template really helps set us up there for success. And then finally, we geeked out a little bit, talked about structure. I'm a big song structure nerd. I think it matters so much. Songwriters talk about this stuff all the time, and I think you should too. I think you should be very conscious of this when you're producing music. So if you haven't seen How to Produce a Pop Song episode 1, go back and watch that. But today we're going to dive into another segment, and I cannot wait. Okay, so you can really start anywhere. You can start with guitars, drums, or whatever it is. For me, the inspiration hit me when I was listening to When the End Comes by Andrew Bell. I just think it's a fantastic song, and so that's where I want to start today, is with synths. Okay, synths are big in pop music, and I end up starting there a lot, actually. And I have kind of this 3-step method that I like to walk through when I am starting a song with synths. And so step 1 is what I call the chord and pad layer. All right, so after gathering inspiration and kind of building this template out a little bit, I found some patches that to me really encapsulate that, dark indie synth pop thing that Andrew Bell is doing. And I have some of my favorite patches on here. And when I was just thinking about it, I knew, okay, I really want just a simple 2-chord thing. I want a simple 2-chord progression to really carry the song. I love simplicity and what it can add. And so I ended up doing this kind of like, 4 major 7, right? So 4-chord major 7 to a 1-chord major 7. So a 4 to a 1 progression. And I kind of played with this rhythmically and teased it out a little bit. And this is what I came up with. So to me, it has this kind of nice bouncy ambience to it. And so it's got a little bit of rhythm to it. I really love it. And so I started really building it off of that for like kind of that chord layer. Okay, so then after kind of listening to that, I was like, I want something to sit underneath that. And this is where, that pad layer comes in. So we're dealing with chords and pads, right? So underneath that, I kind of wanted this swelly little ambient, very simple pad. So I've got Analog Waves and Logic. It's one of my favorite Logic pad plugins. So I was like, I want to go more simple here. Sometimes I'll straight up copy this over and that works, but in this case, I want to just hold big sustained notes like this, right? Kind of behind that. And so we'll kind of get this going here. And there's our pad layer. So that'll sit really nicely underneath everything. I'm going to kind of just quantize these very first notes to the grid, just so they hit exactly when the loop hits. And it'll sound like this. So really nice stuff there. We're building a good foundation. So that's kind of step 1, layer 1 is that chord and pad layer. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put down the lead layer. Now, some people like just start with the lead layer, and that's totally cool. I'm fine with that. It's your song. Do whatever you want. But for me, every time I start with the lead layer, I end up just kind of losing the newness, right? Like the lead layer is the cool part. It's like that vocal soloist that goes over everything. And for me, I'm like, like that's really great, but after a while, it just starts to lose its shine. And I still want to be able to have an atmosphere that I can create in. So that's why I always do the lead layer second to everything else. So I've got this lead patch. And I kind of came up with this like vocal line, if you will. I really like to think of my lead synths as like vocalists. Like, how would a singer sing over this part intermittently and without being too busy or too showy? And so I'm coming up with lines. Something like that. And so we're going to put that in here. Let me give it some room. So I'm going to start it maybe a little bit later. In here, I've also got, you may have noticed, I've got some like markers. This is kind of the box I tend to build with a lot of pop music, especially this song, because it's structured this way. And I'm like, I want to work within that structure. I want to challenge myself to work within that structure. So, a little side tangent. I'm going to go ahead and record this lead line. So really stoked on that. I really like that a lot. And that's just going to be that simple thing that fills the space. There's not much to talk about there. It's a vocalist. It's trying not to busy up the song. And you may delete it later when you do lay down vocals. You may just end up getting rid of that. But I love to kind of have a little bit of vocal-like melody while I'm producing when there's not really any vocal present in the song. All right, so now kind of the last layer that I add to kind of make up the synth landscape of the song is the bass layer. I like to add mainly two bass layers. There's like a very static bass layer, something like that. And then typically for choruses, I will add in kind of a little bit more movement, right? Kind of an arpeggiated bass layer. And if you go into Logic, you've got some options with the MIDI effects with this arpeggiator. I'll usually set it to a 16th note or an 8th note, play with it like that. Maybe go for a higher octave. Need to mess with the modulation on that. It's pretty wacky. But be that as it may, some really cool stuff you can do with this. But for now, we're going to start in the verse with just a pretty simple bass layer. And before we dive too deep into that, I will say you may have noticed this little guy over here. I kind of followed a rabbit trail earlier. I love the concept of transitional moments. I think they really drive a song super well, especially when you can do some like crazy automation and fun stuff. And so I created like a synth swell, whereas some songs would use like a cymbal swell or a drum fill to kind of transition into the next moment of the song. Sometimes I will use synths. And so I followed this rabbit trail a little bit and did this little swell here. I'll let you hear it. Just kind of slowly fades in. See some automation data over here. And then it just kind of cuts out. So I knew, I'm like, that's how I want to enter the chorus. And so sometimes when you're producing music, yes, you want to create parameters. Yes, you want to create structure. But within that structure, you can create some chaos. And it's a lot of fun. It's just so much fun. So that's what I did there. And I'm going to add in some bass now, and we're going to go from there. So I've got this kind of verse bass patch that I really like. I try not to make it too boring. Also, if you have headphones, I'd recommend putting them on because it's going to be a lot better for you so you can really hear this, because obviously it's not mixed yet. We're still in the production phase. So I'll let you hear what I've got going on here. We're just going to, I think I know what I'm going to do. We're going to play around with this. So, pretty happy with that. Super stoked on how it's going. Gonna save that arpeggiator for the chorus whenever we kind of come up with that. But yeah, that's what we got. We've got our chord pad layer up here. we've kind of built a good foundation on, got a good start with. Kind of have a lead layer to get our inspiration going, get some of our just juices flowing with how we want to think melodically and vocally. Got that swelly synth, again, total rabbit trail, just thought I'd have fun. And then we've got just a good bass layer that we're laying down. So that gets us through the synths, and I think we're in a pretty good spot. So that was episode 2. We played with some synths. We had a good time, or I had a good time at least. And if you got a lot out of this, will you please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can find more of these videos and we can talk and we can figure out how to help you make your best music ever. Also in the description, I've got a link to my Logic Pro template. It's all stock stuff, so you won't need to really download anything. If you've got Logic, you can just load that thing in and go and make amazing music. So pick that up, be sure to like and subscribe, and until next time, cheers.